Well, here we go. It's exam tips time for the March 24 exam. If you've been chomping at the bit waiting for these, I've had so many messages from students asking for them. So here we go. Here's my top tips. Oh, and by the way, in the September sitting, I got a 75% hit ratio for these. So, you know, I know what I'm talking about. Right, the first one, question 1 of the exam. Now, you might think I'm not going out on much of a limb here. Right? Audit risk. Obviously, you're going to get a risk question, right? There's always a risk question. But the last few sittings, the risk question has been risk of material misstatement. And it's been business risks to go alongside it. I think this sitting is going to be specifically audit risks, where there are going to be issues around the auditor and detection risk, as well as all of the usual kind of inherent risks and control risks that you'll get in the scenario. Now, a tip for you around detection risks. You're not going to get any marks for just saying it's a new client. You're not going to get any marks for talking generically about why the auditor might overlook something. You've got to make your points specific to add depth to another audit risk. So, I don't know, let's say it's something over the opening balances. There needs to be something in the opening balances that we might overlook because we're the new auditor. Or there needs to be a judgmental area of the audit around another audit risk where our lack of experience from being a new auditor is going to make it challenging for us. Now, I've also put on here there's going to be some technical financial reporting. There will be, because there has been in all of the question 1s recently. It's important you go over your SBR notes and you are sharp on financial reporting. Critical for AAA. Now, what is the financial reporting going to be? I can't tell you, right? Things that have been coming up have been on groups. There's been technical stuff on capitalising research and development expenditure. There's been pensions accounting. Something that hasn't come up for a while, but it's probably due, is leases. So I'd make sure you're all over the accounting for leases. But really, it's anything. Share options, inventory, revenue recognition. These are all things the examiner has tested recently and they're common topics. So make sure you're all over FR. Then the procedures question, which you will get likely in question 1, but could be elsewhere in the exam, most likely in question 1. Something the examiner's been doing recently, and I fully expect them to continue doing, is not just say, suggest audit procedures over the investment. Right? They will be specific. Right? They will tell you a precise assertion that you need to generate audit procedures over. So it might be the valuation of the investment rather than just the investment generally. Now, what that means is you will only score marks if your procedures are focused on that particular assertion. So a good tip is that when you're writing the procedure, the last bit of your explanation should explain how it gives evidence over valuation. Right, that's hard to do, but is something you need to do. And watch out. If you write procedures that aren't relevant to that assertion, not only won't you score marks for them, you'll also lose professional skills credit for not answering the question that's been set. Then the last part of question 1. Normally it's ethics, right? But I'm expecting this time for it to be a bit wider. Right? We haven't seen this for a while. It's something the examiner does like. I think instead of being the ethical implications, it will ask you the audit implications, which is a wider requirement. So it's anything that can impact the performance of the audit, not just ethics stuff. And you have to be guided by what's in the scenario as to what you write. Anything that can impact the audit will be relevant, but you have to explain how it can impact the audit if you're going to score marks for it. Now, I've also put on here 2 kind of technical article areas that I think will either be built into question 1 or could be built into the wider exam, but I'm expecting to see them. The first one is on sustainability. Now, that's a new article that was published in January, but there were also 2 technical articles published on it in 2023. It is clearly at the front of the examiner's mind, so I'm expecting to see it tested. Now, I've recorded a podcast on this latest technical article. If you don't listen to my podcast already, go and find it because you'll find it useful for reviewing that article. Also, data analytics, something the examiner loves and has tested loads in the past, but hasn't tested much recently. It's due to come up. You have been warned. Right, going into section B of the exam, I am not really making much of a prediction here, quality management is definitely coming up. It has come up in every exam for the last 18 months. Definitely coming up in yours. The examiner has flagged it as so make sure you are ready for evaluating the quality of a piece of audit work that's already been done. And everything will have been done badly about it. Your job is to explain why it was done badly and explain it in detail. Right, we haven't had a classic acceptance question for a while, where we've been approached by a client who wants us to do some due diligence work on perhaps their cash flow forecast or to do a fraud investigation. The acceptance part is something that hasn't come up for a while and the examiner really likes. So I'm expecting to see it this time. And I'm also expecting to see particularly fraud. The examining team love fraud. Well, they don't love fraud. They love testing fraud. The reason being that every fraud scenario is radically different to all of the others. Because the detail of a fraud that you'll be given in the exam, well, it'll be very, very specific to that particular fraud, that company, that industry, and that dodgy person who was doing something bad. Now, the reason they like to give you that kind of scenario where it's very different to previous exam questions is you can't rote learn for it, right? An examiner hates rote learning. They want to test your skills in this exam, which is why fraud is something they love. We also haven't seen evaluating a cash flow forecast and a profit forecast. We've not seen that very much recently. And again, they are topics the examiner likes, so I'm expecting to see those. Now, the classic reporting question. You will get a question that focuses on reporting, but sometimes, recently, it's only been a few marks on reporting. But I think this time, there is going to be at least one variant where it's a big reporting question. At least 10 marks on critically evaluating an audit report. Now, this is always the question that students hate the most, and it hasn't come up for a while. So be ready for it, right? There are some past exam questions for you to practice on critically evaluating an audit report if you go into the ACCA's revision question bank and study question bank on the Study Hub. There are some on there. So it's worth going and doing a bit of practice. My mindset for you, my approach for you with critically evaluating an audit report. One tip is everything will be wrong. Your job is to explain why. The second thing is you've got to really, really use the scenario. So you'll be given wider stuff about what's happened in this audit, as well as the extract from the audit report. And your job is to use the wider information you're given to explain why what is in the audit report is incorrect. Now, I've also put on here other information paragraphs. That's a bit random, isn't it? Why do I think they're going to be tested? Well, other information paragraphs are used to highlight any inconsistencies between the audited financial statements and any information that is presented alongside the financial statements. For example, a sustainability report. So if sustainability is tested in the reporting question, which it may well be, then you need to be all over the content of other information paragraphs because that is what will need to be in the audit report if there's any inconsistency between the sustainability report, which is not audited, and the fully audited financial statements. Well, that's it for this exam tips video. After the exam, I will be posting, based on what my students tell me, I'll be posting what came up in the actual exam. So I'll be able to give myself a grade, maybe a self-review threat here, but I'll give myself a grade on how good these predictions were. Good luck for the exam, everyone.